Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. And welcome to this week's Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and I'm here this morning with David. And we are talking to you about standing up for yourself. This entire month, we've been focusing on living authentically, being a person who is congruent both within and without, and the different things that interrupt or interfere with us. Actually, that was last month. We promised this month that we're going to start something new today. Oh, okay, I know, because, apologies. Now you can see this is a live show. We're transitioning this week on the Kabbalistic calendar from the month of Sagittarius to the month of Capricorn. So the month of Capricorn, we are focusing on conflict resolution, and I'm trying to think of a nice way to say it. Conflict resolution and opposition. That's a good way to say it. Conflict and opposition resolution. And so every week this month, we're going to be focusing on different aspects, not only providing our listeners with the wisdom and tools to deal with those situations, but also, as always, to proactively preempt those kind of situations by shifting our perspectives and the way we live our lives, so to be more aligned with light. And light, whether you capitalize the L or not, you want to think about it as bright, not heavy. But usually on the Weekly Energy Boost, when we talk about light, we're talking about the light force of the Creator, and being in alignment with that force means every opportunity, even the ones that make us uncomfortable, even the ones that appear adverse or conflicting, are for our best, and the solution is always going to be win-win for everyone. And that's hard to see in the face of opposition, or when someone is challenging you or crossing your boundaries or making you feel vulnerable or in danger, when you feel like there's a risk in front of you. So we want to talk today specifically about those situations in which you may find people challenging you, your beliefs, your lifestyle. I think especially in today,
this week you're saying?
This week we're talking about standing up for yourself.
Yeah, but you said that people will challenge your belief system.
Not belief systems. It's hard to challenge another person's belief system, okay, because it's very hard to know other people's belief systems, let alone your own belief systems. Talking about beliefs, opinions, even space. I know that there's a lot of, we could have called this episode maybe how to handle bullying in a spiritual way, but there's a lot of bullying going on in different forms. And I think more than ever, I guess when we were younger, it used to take place on the playground and in the classroom and maybe in the conference room. But now it really is everywhere. And as spiritually minded people, we don't want to simply fight back, because that's adding fire to fire. You don't eliminate darkness with more darkness. You eliminate it by shining light on it. So we want to give our listeners, as we do every week, the wisdom and tools to navigate not only the opportunities this week that may come up, but any kind of opportunities like this in the coming year, not only the coming year, all years. And I think we should also point out that on the Kabbalistic calendar, this is one of the most powerful weeks of the year. If you're listening now, it's Monday morning, November 29th. Yeah, so it is the first day of Hanukkah, which the Kabbalists explain it's not simply about commemorating something that happened 1,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago. It's really about whatever miracle, whatever you could be commemorating. The Kabbalists explain that what happened then was a result of knowing the tools and the wisdom that we know today, and we can take advantage of the same cosmic window that they did in order to create miracles in our own life. So that is also very much about standing in your power, fighting opposition, and it's also energetically, there's a lot of really great energy this week in terms of not only miracles, but also abundance and prosperity. We mentioned a few weeks ago dreams. The dream thing is still, I had some wacky dreams last night as well. So I know it's a little bit all over the place, but we're going to get focused, and we're going to share with you what you can do to make the most of this week. And for that, I'm going to lob the ball to David.
You mentioned something that triggered a lesson that I wanted to share. There's three. Kabbalists say there are three ways to generate or create the tap into the light of the Creator. 3 ways, and they're based on time, the place, and the soul. It's trying to simplify it without using too advanced of a Kabbalistic terminology. But basically, the 3 ways that you can reveal miracles is a transformation on a soul level, which is whenever you get confronted with something that brings up negativity, and then we go through the process, as we've learned in Kabbalah 1, of how to transform that. Then there's the place. So there are places in this world that have different energies. So even though we say that the light is everywhere, the Creator is everywhere, and then you would say, well, then there should be equal energy everywhere. But the way that the world was created is that energy is revealed in different ways in different places. So sometimes a person needs to be in a specific place to correct it. So sometimes you feel the need to travel somewhere, or you get lost and you find yourself somewhere, or you miss the exit on the freeway and then you find that you have to drive a couple more miles. Whatever it is, we find ourselves in different places. Either the Creator puts us there, or we feel the desire to go there because something needs to be revealed in that place that can only be revealed in that place. And it's interesting because a lot of times couples think, oh, where should we get married? Or where should we go on a vacation or a trip? Where should we eat tonight? Every time you ask a question, the answer already exists, causing you to have the question. So if you're thinking, where should I eat tonight? Well, where did this question come from of where should I eat tonight? It came from the place that you should be eating at, forcing you to ask the question. Does that make sense? So because what came first? The light or the vessel? The light came first. The solution always comes before the problem. The answer always comes before the question. In fact, the answer is what's causing the question. So any question you have about life, that question was born from the answer already existing. Now, you don't know the answer because of what we call the bread of shame, the fact that everything in this world needs to be earned spiritually, which is a whole nother session that is beyond the scope of what we're talking about now. But just to rein it back in, we got transformation on a soul level, simply when somebody bothers you, whatever it is. There's the place, and then there's a time. So there's a timing as to what you need to correct. The energy is revealed in different times, in different ways. And that whole preamble was leading into what Hanukkah is that there's these 8 days that existed since the beginning of time where the energy is different. It's revealed in a different way than any other time of the year for all of humanity. It just so happens that the story of Hanukkah, which took place thousands of years ago, has to do with a group of people who knew about that energy at that time and revealed it through their work. So, like Elisheva said, we're not commemorating history. We were shown that there's a light that's available that we can tap into. And what that light is, we can talk more about as well. But I wanted to kind of give that framework of how things work. There's 3 main ways of creating energy: time, space, and the soul. So time, the place, and the soul.
What I love about that, what you shared, is that it's the taking advantage of that cosmic window, that window in time that those that group of people who quote unquote manifested the miracle of Hanukkah did. One of the tools they used is something that we need to talk about today in terms of standing up for ourselves, and that is unity. That we think.
All right, so we're just to back up, the energy, we said that there's energy available. Now you're talking about what they did, what tool they used to draw down that light, which is available at this time.
Right. So this is not only what they did, this is what we can do. And this is especially relevant to the topic that we're talking about today, because effectively what they did back then was stand up for themselves. And the goal wasn't, I'm going to stand up for myself, and in order to do that, I'm going to put everybody else down, or I'm going to destroy everybody else in my path, or I am going to enjoy making the other person wrong or feel small. The goal is unity. And I think that that's so counterintuitive for us, because if I'm in a position where I feel I need to stand up for myself, it implies that somebody else is putting me down, making me feel small, questioning something I'm doing, something I believe in, something that's important to me. And if I'm going to stand up for myself, I cannot have their demise in mind. That's actually the secret to success. That if I want to truly stand up and stand in my truth, whatever that means, it cannot involve putting the other person down or undercutting the other person or people. The goal of unity, and this to me, we brought it up a few weeks ago. I can't even remember in which context. I just feel like I've recently sat in this seat saying almost the same thing. That when I walk into a room, no matter whether I know I'm going to have a good time or I'm afraid that I'm going to get canned or whatever the situation, maybe we were talking about it in terms of gathering it with family during the holidays and whatnot. If my goal is to elevate the room, I want every place, this is an overarching mindset, I want everywhere I go, whether it's my home, my place of work, a retail store nearby, everywhere I go, the car wash for all that matters, I want it to be a better place because I was there. I want to leave it better than it was before. So in those moments where we find ourselves in conflict, opposition, standing up for ourselves, arguing, defending, whatever the situation, when we have that moment of pause before we respond, react, redirect, the Kabbalists talk about having unity. I don't want to create more separation or destruction with this, whatever I'm going to say or whatever I'm going to do. I want it to close the space between us. I want to create more connection, more revelation of the light. And I'll tell you what the way that I think about it often is, David, actually, it's usually David's job on the Weekly Energy Boost to talk about affinity with the Creator, similarity of form. And I think it might, when one of us little people on planet Earth is going astray, when we're on our mission and something distracts us or takes us off course, and the Creator looks down at us and says, you were doing really well for a while, now you're seeming to veer off course. How can I get you back on course? How can I get you back on track is the thought of the Creator, I imagine. So when I see somebody who's not seeing things, quote unquote, correctly, or I can help them see things differently, I try to come in affinity with the Creator and not with, I'm going to prove you wrong, I'm going to cut you down, I'm going to make you feel bad for what you just did or said. I'm going to make the opposite, that through doing it with love and kindness, that doesn't mean that doesn't mean I'm not going to be tough or might have to say some harsh words. But if the goal is that getting you back onto a different, better path, helping you to see something that maybe you were missing, even just saying, listen, you can't talk to me that way, right? I'm not doing it for my ego or to feel vindicated. I'm doing it because in closing that space between us, there's more light in the world. And that's a very different, I think what the problem with a lot of the trying to fix when somebody's crossed those boundaries with us is that we're doing it to feel better, or we're doing it because we want to show we're strong, or we want to know. There's some ego-driven purpose, and we need to bring it back to a light-driven purpose.
A lot of people will say, well, a lot of people want to have unity, and they'll get involved in their community or for their friendship circle or their relationships and start to do things that they think are for the sake of unity. So, for example, it can be preaching something. It can be, you all need to do this. Or here, there's some kind of sharing of information that you think is good for somebody else, and is going to create this ultimate unity. When in reality, what Elisheva said, all we need to do is we need to want the unity. But and this is, I think, something so important. When you walk into a room, people say, well, what should I do? What should I do? How do I add value? How do I leave this place better than? And so, you could go around and just start, imagine I walk into a room and I'm like, oh, how do I leave this place better? And I just start going to everybody and start teaching them Kabbalah. Well, obviously, that's going to get me kicked out. So that's not good. So how do I need to want. Michael Berg, I remember many, many years ago, he said, you need to want the value to be shared. But the actual act of interfering in someone's life and giving them something, this needs a lot more thought. But it's the wanting. The problem is we walk into a restaurant or we walk into a party or we walk into a room. The default isn't I want to add value and take nothing. The default is how do I maximize the pleasure I'm going to receive from the next hour? Everyone thinks, how do I maximize my pleasure? And the Kabbalists say that there's a contraction that happens every time somebody thinks this way. Meaning, there's like an angel that shuts down the ability to receive pleasure as soon as you look for pleasure. As soon as you try to take, there's a force. There's like an angel that follows you that says, okay, as soon as you take, as soon as you take and you tasted it, he's going to take it away from you. And think of every pleasure that was born from that consciousness of I'm going to get something from this. You feel good for a moment, and then you feel down, you feel empty. Even major achievements in your life, you felt great and high that night, and then there was an emptiness that came the next day. So what we're really saying is, what I would want my audience to focus on, my own personal students, is before you figure out what to do, how to share, how to set boundaries, how to do anything, come from that place of you want. The internal desire is, I want to, I have no idea how to, but develop the wanting. The Creator will then show you what's next. But if you just try to do things that are positive, you will get tripped up, and you will end up doing something that's actually for yourself, selfishly.
I think it's also important to mention, someone wants me to stop talking. It's also important to mention that those moments that we feel opposition or challenged by others, or that we need even to fight for ourselves. And part of me wants to say, listen, there's a lot of stuff going on out there that you could say, well, there's underdogs and we need to fight for them. Or I know we had somebody that was talking once on the show. Somebody was commenting on one episode talking about, well, what about animals? They don't have a voice. Who's going to speak for them? I think in today's episode, at least in the context of what we're talking about, we're talking more about personal affront rather than social justice, politics, fighting for others or what's right for others. Today, in what we're talking about today, we're really addressing the personal, and I'll explain why. When an opportunity comes to you that can challenge you in terms of someone crosses your boundaries, I keep on repeating that phrase, crosses your boundaries, challenges your beliefs or your lifestyle personally, not other people, but personally, or when something seemingly bad, somebody's trying to do something bad to you, it is always for your good. And the opportunities that come to you to fight for other people or other things is not necessarily personal for you. And that's a really important distinction to make. When you yourself are being personally challenged, that situation is coming to you to make you a better person. How? There are billions of possibilities of ways. But the reason it's important to distinguish that is because, let's say, for example, with fighting for the environment, which I can personally talk for hours on why I think it's a noble cause. There are many other people like me that agree, although probably there should be more people, It's not what today's episode is about. But you can arguably look out there and say there are plenty of organizations, there's plenty of passionate supporters of that cause, but I'm the only supporter of my own cause. There is only one person fighting to make a better Elisheva, and that is me. And the only person who's going to be challenged to do that is also me. So it might be worthwhile for each one of us this week to recognize that I am my own cause, that I am what my purpose in life, the elevation of my imperfections and the expansion of my ability to share and influence with others in the world, there is only one me. And so when those opportunities that challenge me come to me, I need to recognize no one else can deal with this but me. There isn't an organization, Raising Elisheva or City of Elisheva.
It's not like Make-A-Wish. It's Make an Elisheva Foundation.
Exactly. There is no Make an Elisheva Foundation. It is me and only me.
There is a Make an Elisheva Foundation, and you're the only one who can contribute to it.
Exactly. And I'm the only one that benefits from it also. And it's important to recognize that, because I think a lot of us invest time and energy in noble causes. And I mean that seriously. I don't want to sound like I'm poking fun, or again, for me, the environment is absolutely, I am a crazy recycler, okay? Fanatical, going through the trash, okay? True confessions of a Kabbalah teacher. But I also know that there are other people out there who are doing it, and I don't really need to worry about it. I genuinely feel it's connected to my personal Make an Elisheva Foundation. It is part of what makes me me, and we don't need to talk about that on the show. However, when you go across the terrain of the coming week and you see all the moments that you are going to be challenged, the focus needs to be not on the social justice challenge or the political challenge or the environmentalist challenge or the Save the Animals challenge. The focus is on me. What is challenging me? When I talk to students, sometimes they say, I don't know what I should be working on. The easiest way to figure out what you can be working on, which is, again, this ties into the whole creating a miracle thing, because the easiest way to think about what you should be working on is to think about what's hard for you. Well, nothing is hard for me. Really? What do you say to someone when they say nothing is hard for you? Nothing makes me uncomfortable. Nothing is difficult for me.
Is this why you're talking to me?
Why are you listening to the show?
There's no reason for you to be talking to me if your life is great.
No, I don't mean life is great. They're coming and they're complaining. Life is not great, but nothing is too hard for me. Challenge doesn't bother me. I'm not weak or anything like that.
Usually when people feel that, nothing, it's kind of like if I was on drugs, I also would think nothing is hard. But, right?
We go back again to the drug conversation.
Drugs kind of just takes you out of the element. But when something isn't hard, and there are times in your life where it's just green lights, things are great. That's the phase that you're supposed to be learning, praying, strengthening your consciousness, because there will be a phase where everything takes a step back and you're left feeling alone, no strength, no energy, and it will be hard, right? So when people say, nothing's hard for me, I say, well, great, we're in that phase right now. Do you want to talk about how to prepare for when it's about to get challenging for you because you're about to go to your next level? Or can you remind me of when was the last time you did go through that? Oh, well, in fact, it was 6 months ago. It was
right.
hard.
And what was hard about it? Because inevitably a similar scenario will come to take you to level up.
That's correct. And it's important to know that when I was talking to somebody about this recently, and this is important for everybody to know, because a lot of times people are like, well, I don't gain traction. I don't get the miracles I want. I don't see the results I want. And there are a lot of people who bow out of an endeavor somewhere in the beginning, the middle, or near the end without completing it. And spiritually speaking, even if you're doing something that's not your purpose or your passion, it's important to finish stuff. When you finish something, you receive the light of it, and that light will guide you to the next thing. But a lot of times people are guided by the way they feel, by, hey, it's getting challenging, and because it's getting challenging, that probably means I need to look elsewhere. It's very important no matter where you are in your life today, as soon as it gets challenging, and as soon as your emotions start to tell you to quit, and as soon as you start looking for the exit, you're looking for instant gratification, that's when you have to strengthen yourself and say, I have to push through this. That's how I build myself. So people are so caught up with what is the thing I need to do. Even if you are doing the thing that is not your purpose in this world, the Creator still puts you there to finish it. You got to finish. Even if you're in a bad relationship, you have to finish it before you start a new one. A lot of times people are like, well, I'm in this bad relationship. Let me start this other one and this other one and hedge myself in 8 different directions. And then maybe that will give me diversify. Who knows? Maybe if I have 3 relationships, at least better odds that I find my soulmate, right? That's not how it works. You have to complete something in order for the light of that completion to show you what your next thing is. And that's what it means to really be strong and to stand up for what? You have to stand up for your soul. People are way too invested in the way they feel. The feelings are very tricky. Because if I followed my feelings every day, gosh, some days I don't want to be a father.
You'd be in bed.
Yeah. Sometimes, I'd be like, Elisheva, you take the show today. Or, those kids, I'd be like, hey, kids, I'm not going to feed you today. You can just go figure it out. But if I had to follow my feelings, because feelings are just they just want the small pleasures here and there. So it's very important to always bypass feelings and go deeper inside your soul. And go back to the original purpose, the original intention. And I think that's what we're always trying to talk about on this show. What's the source here? What's the goal? What are you trying to achieve? And we always go back to the safest goal we all can have is that affinity of form with the Creator. Constantly cleanse, constantly remove the negative belief systems, constantly break those fears, constantly go outside your comfort zone. Well, what about everything else? Everything else will work out. This is what we've always been told by our teachers since we were little kids in the Kabbalah Centre, which is, well, how do I get this? And how do I get that? And how do I build wealth? And how do I get married? I was always told the same answer. Stop planning for the future. Take today, reveal the light. Cleanse yourself, share, break your fears. Well, what's going to happen after that? We're not in the business of forecasting the future. But what I was always promised was if you do that, follow it one day at a time, you will always be led to the place of miracles. And I think that's where this energy all comes from this week.
100%. I think our tendency to overplan and control the outcome causes us to miss what's most important, which is what's happening right now. What can I do right now? And somebody was asking in the comments about racism and sexism. Right? Those can feel very personal, especially when you're the gender that's being discriminated against or the race that's being discriminated against. What I meant to say before is that when it happens to you, it's yours. When it's happening to other people, I hope I don't mean to sound like don't support causes. What we're talking about is the opposition. When you're being prejudiced against? When somebody is putting you down because of your race, your gender, your beliefs, that's when the opposition is yours and it's there to make you a better person. Wait,
before you continue, because it sounds cliche, but it's very deep what you just said. And we talked about this recently on the show. When someone is criticizing you, discriminating against you, or putting you down, how are we supposed to spiritually look at that? Okay, make me a better person. What is it? No one knows what to do with that, right?
Well, okay, yes.
Let's give them the Kabbalah of what's happening.
Okay. So I'm going to defer to a colleague of ours who had a student who was constantly feeling devalued and attributed it to her nationality. Okay, so she would come to her teacher and say, it's because I'm mixed races. It's because the races that are mixed up compose my ethnicity. I'm being passed over for jobs. I'm being, the guy I was dating dropped me there. People aren't hiring me because it became this whole story for her.
Story.
And I remember listening to her teacher, who sat not far away from me, telling her that it's actually her own what's the right word? Her own perception of her background, her own shame on her parents got married. She was an illegitimate child. Then they got married. Like, she is ashamed of her own background. So everybody else picks up on it, and she blames everything for it.
Sure.
So her lesson was learning self-love, self-worth, that her worth is not in who came before her. It's not about, her last name or changing her last name or hyphenating her last name. It's really it's like to forget the details, to not be a victim. She's not a victim of her DNA, her genetics, her upbringing, her parents, anything, to really stand in her own. And the moment she was able to switch that, everything changed, literally. And I can't say it was a moment. It was more of like an excavation of her recognizing, falling in love with her heritage, getting deeper into her parents' story and struggle and what they had to go through to be safe and happy and healthy in their relationship, what they went through with their own families to be together, and then embracing the uniqueness of what made her her. And then it's actually quite funny. She got this amazing job, and then her company got bought by one of I'm not going to drop the names. I don't want anybody to know who I'm talking about, but got bought by like the biggest company. No names. This
company got bought by the biggest company, and then the
number one company right now.
And then the number 0 of the number.
And she got brought onto that team, his team, and then she got married and had a kid. Like, it's just like, it was really like she chose her own adventure. Once she was able to reflect on how she is creating the rejection, the shaming, the all the prejudice, it was her own prejudice against herself.
This is what I really love about this wisdom, because I just want to know, tell me what to do and what's the fastest and best way to do it. So when I came to Kabbalah 1 and, I'm hearing, how do I make my life better? What really got me was, if 7 billion people hate you and are even racist against you, or whatever you want, racist and misogynistic and discriminatory, all these things against you, it doesn't matter if you're with the light. If you're with the light, you still get everything. And when I heard that, I said, well, there's like this weight is lifted off of me of, wait, I don't need to educate 7 billion people and change thousands of years of history. And I don't need to do any of that. All you're saying, I need to go home, change my consciousness, be with the light. And now I've risen above the whole thing. In fact, I could go live in whatever world I want to live in just by being with the light. It's such a profound thing. All you have to do is connect with the source, and you actually enter a different dimension where none of those problems exist, as opposed to staying stuck in the dimension and trying to advocate for change in that world, which leads you nowhere. That world is going to stay the way it is, but you can elevate to another world and another world. We have to remind ourselves constantly, because I have to remind myself when something doesn't go my way, instead of trying to fix it, hold on a second. I'm going to go to the metaverse. I'm going to another dimension where I'm just going to rise above to another dimension, not try to clean up the one I'm in now.
Well, I think that's especially hard when you're in a position that you see how convincing others does help.
Well, that's right. So he throws you, the opponent makes you feel that you can change other people, and give you some satisfaction from it, so that you double down on it and make it your new ethos.
And the challenge again with that is, you may have part of your divine mission is to make a difference in the world and shift people's perspectives. But the challenge with that, first of all, seeing it happen, right? What's the greatest satisfaction? I can tell you, I still remember it. There was a guy who came, I gave a lecture once, and he came to me and said, "This is hogwash." A guy probably in his 70s, sweetest guy. I think his name was Irving. And he came to me and he said, "This is hogwash. You're cute, you're sweet, but I don't buy it." And something like 5 years later, he was still taking classes and enjoying himself. And I got such satisfaction because I knew that at the first impression, he thought it was nonsense. And then it slowly made a way into his heart. But the challenge, I think, when people do see that, you know, I stood up for what I believe in and I changed someone else's mind, right? I stood up for whatever it was. We actually had an episode a few months ago where we brought someone onto the show who had actually helped, quote unquote, change a white supremacist mind, right? Yeah. That wasn't his goal or his agenda. That's why it worked, right? That the problem is when you see it work and then that becomes your goal, that's the problem. The goal is not overturning legislature. The goal is I need to stand up for my soul. I need to, because this is attached to my correction, my tikkun. I need to stand in my power and help people learn, or I don't know what it is, because it helps me grow.
That's why this show is not even nonsense. I mean, the fact that we're sitting here on this podcast telling people that, oh, you can do this and you should change that, we're actually not even listening to our own advice. Because the fact that we even think for a moment that anything we're doing now is doing anything, that's also a trick, right? Imagine someone sends us an email that says, oh, you know, my life improved in some way. Then we go, wow, well, you know what? Let's do more of this show because it's helping people. All of that's an illusion. So why are we doing the show? Just for that day that I don't want to come to the show and I overcome my nature to come to the show. That's what's changing the world, not the show. Nothing about this show and nothing about any show, nothing about anything that anybody's doing that's within their comfort zone is changing anything. Only restriction.
It's so funny because just last week I was talking to somebody and they said something like, I can't wait till I get to your level when I can just stand up in front of hundreds of people and just start talking and
that's when you stop talking. That's when you stop teaching.
I said to her, I have heart palpitations every time I have to speak. Like I have a talking to right before every episode, every class, every lecture, everything, because it's not my nature to do that, right? And I don't want it to go away. Because if it goes away, then I have something else to, you know what I mean? It's like I pray that it stays.
Well, we have to end the show now because I think we're enjoying ourselves too much. So yeah, we're going to wrap it up in 1 minute. It reminds me of that thing I asked Michael Berg 20 years ago when he asked this teacher to teach a class who wasn't the best. He wasn't a good teacher. He wasn't a good speaker. And I said, why'd you ask this guy? Why not ask that guy? That guy's a great speaker. He's like, yeah, but that guy enjoys it too much. You picked the guy that it was hard for him and he didn't want to do it and he didn't enjoy it because Michael just wanted to reveal the energy. He didn't. All right, wrap it up.
Okay, so we want to make sure, first of all, that everybody is aware. We have this cosmic window we've been talking about. It ends next Monday evening, the energy of Hanukkah. However you can connect to it. So it's not something that there's a must, but there's tons of resources I can share with you in a minute. But what's also important to take note of is that the new moon is this week as well, which is why we're shifting gears and talking about conflict resolution this month. The new moon is actually Saturday and Sunday, so by next week's episode we'll be mired in the energy of Capricorn, so that's a good thing. And the truth is that in this facing the opposition or being willing to be firm, right? I know that a lot of people excuse me, a lot of people are worried. It's funny because David talked about finishing what we start. A lot of people are worried that if they put their foot down or if they say something, the other person will end the relationship, end the friendship, terminate them, whatever it is. And I think at a certain point, we also have to ask ourselves, do we want to be right or do we want to be light? Meaning, this is something that I think a lot of people struggle with because it becomes a little bit gray when you talk about doing the right thing. What is the right thing? The right thing is going to be, as I said in the beginning of the episode, win-win for both people. Win-win for everybody, and not just right now, but in the long term. Many times the best choice, the best option feels bad now. And that's what David talked earlier about emotions being tricky, because I don't want to, or I don't feel like it, is not necessarily an indicator that now is the wrong time. And I think we use that as a justification. You know, I wanted to have this conversation with so-and-so, but I don't feel like it right now, or I'm not vibing it right now. That's not a good reason to defer going to your next level with this conversation. We'll have an episode in a few weeks that talks directly about confrontation and how to go about that. So don't walk too far away from your device you're listening to now. But the idea is that if the reason I'm standing up for myself is ego-based, it won't advance me. It won't take me where I want to go, and it's not going to reveal the light that I'm hoping it'll reveal in the long run. And so when we talk about elevating, finding the way to improve the situation, which doesn't only mean me feeling better, because if I'm constantly measuring how well I did by how good I feel, I'm going to cause there's going to be a lot of damage in the wake of my efforts. But also thinking about the bigger picture, right? If I really care about the other person, or if I really care about myself, I want what's best for both of us. And that may be that the relationship doesn't continue, the friendship doesn't continue. What David was saying earlier about finishing what we start, you know, you may wake up one day and realize the job is not for you, the relationship is not for you. That doesn't mean you don't show up the next morning. I think that's what he was saying. It's that you don't just drop what you're doing and walk out. You find a way with respect, human dignity, tolerance, and I guess long-term benefit for everybody involved. If it's better that whatever it is not going to continue, you want it to end the right way, because as David mentioned, if it doesn't end the right way, you're going to walk into the same scenario, different actors, different costumes, different backdrops, but it's going to be the same challenge because that energy cycle wasn't completed. So going into the coming 7 days until the next weekly energy boost, whether you're listening to this on Monday or any day of the week, be especially mindful this week of opportunities to go against your nature. That's really going to be the key the whole week, is to go against your nature. The creation of miracles, as David said, he gave the list in the beginnings. It's really about going outside of what your natural programming is, what your natural reflexes are, and what's comfortable for you. And I'm sure we'll hear next week. Lots of good stuff happened. As always, you can find Weekly Energy Boost on all podcast apps, YouTube, Facebook. You can follow us on Instagram at Weekly Energy Boost. You can follow us on Facebook at Weekly Energy Boost. And my goodness, I'm at a loss for words. Please continue to share, like, rate, and review. And we'll see you next week on the Weekly Energy Boost.